Hey there, fellowship. Another month has passed, and that means it's time for another challenge. I've got a great song for you this month. It's called Wake Me Up When September Ends by the band Green Day. It's a song that Billie Joe Armstrong, the lead singer of Green Day, wrote about losing his father. As the story goes, on the day of his father's funeral in September of 1982, 10-year-old Billy ran home from the funeral, locked himself in his bedroom, and told his mother, "Wake me up when September ends." The song was released in 2004, which means that Billie Joe had that title rolling around in his head for over 20 years. He'd said he'd avoided writing songs about his dad, but finally had a breakthrough that allowed him to write a fitting tribute. It's a great song, it's fun to play, so we're going to get after it. Here we go with Wake Me Up When September Ends. The tempo is 105 beats a minute, which is moderately fast, but the guitar part doesn't really feel fast. We're going to be playing mostly eighth note patterns that has one sustained note at the end of each measure. So the intro is 4 bars and each measure is exactly the same. We're going to play a cool sounding 3-note voicing of a G chord. We're going to be fretting a G note at the 5th fret of the D string with our ring finger. We're going to play the open G string, and then we play the D note at the 3rd fret of the B string with our index finger. Now, we want to let all of these notes just sort of ring into one another and keep ringing out. And here's the pattern that gets played. We're going to play 6 even eighth notes with each note being played twice. So actually, I'm sorry. We play 5 even eighth notes, and then we're going to play a dotted quarter note that takes up the rest of the measure. So we play 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now let me play through that and count it each time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So we play that 4 times. That's our intro. And then moving on to the verse, it starts with the same shape and picking pattern in the first measure. But in the following 3 measures, we're going to walk right down the D string. And what I mean by that, in measure 2, we're going to play the 4th fret of the D string. Now that's an F note. We're going to play it with our middle finger. First measure. Second measure. Measure 3 of the verse, we're going to go to the E at fret 2 of the D string, and I'm playing that with my middle finger, and that's going to cause me to shift to play the 3rd fret of the B string with my pinky. And then the 4th measure, we're going to play the open D string. So here's those first 4 measures. 1, 2, 3, 4. Measure 5 of the verse, we're going to play a C bar chord with our index finger at the 3rd fret of the A string and our 3rd finger barring the 5th fret of the D, G, and B strings. Now we've got the same picking pattern and rhythm, but what's different is for the first note we're going to play the A string, the second note we play the D string, and on the 3rd note we play both the G and B strings simultaneously. And of course we repeat that. Measure 6, we're going to play a C minor chord with our index finger at the 3rd fret of the A string, 3rd finger at the 5th fret of the D string, pinky at the 5th fret of the G string, and our middle finger is going to be on the 4th fret of the B string. Same picking pattern. And then measure 7 and 8, we're going to play a different version of a G chord where we're going to fret the 3rd fret of the low E string with our ring finger, and we fret the 3rd fret of the B string with our pinky. Same rhythmic pattern. We're going to play low E, D, and then the B and G strings simultaneously. So let me play the first 8 measures of the verse for you. 1, 2, 3, 4. The verse continues, and we repeat the first 7 measures. But in the 8th measure, we're going to switch it up just a little. We're going to play 8 eighth notes and 2 different chords. The first one is the same version of the G chord that we played in measure 8 of the first time through the verse. We're fretting the 3rd fret of the low E and the 3rd fret of the B string. But this time we're going to pick the low E, the open D, then the G and B strings simultaneously, and then the open D again. And the second chord we play is a version of a D chord, and the only change we make is we're going to play the 2nd fret of the low E with our middle finger. The picking is the same. Here's the G chord, here's the D chord. Pretty cool, and that downward movement in the bass signals that we're moving to a different part of the song, which we're going to call the bridge. So the bridge starts off with an E minor chord. For E minor, we're going to fret the 2nd fret of the A and D strings with our middle and ring fingers. We're going to play the open low E, followed by the E note on the D string, and then we play the open G, B, and E strings simultaneously. Then we repeat that. We're going back to the same rhythm that we played in the intro and the verse. Then we play a B minor chord. With our first finger, we're going to be at the 2nd fret of the A string, ring finger and pinky at the 4th fret of the D and G strings, and the 2nd finger at the 3rd fret of the B string. And we're going to pick the A string, then the D string, and then G and B simultaneously. Next, we go back to our C bar chord like we played in the verse. And that's followed by the G and D chord versions where we played the 8 eighth notes just like the transition from verse to bridge. And now we go back to the start of the bridge. We play E minor, B minor, C, but we end the bridge with a D chord. We're going to pick the open D, then the G string, followed by B and high E simultaneously. So here's the whole bridge. 1, 2, 3, 4. This brings us back to the verse, and for the purposes of the challenge, we're going to play through 8 measures and end it. And the song ends on a G chord, but we're going to end it like this. When we play the C major and C minor chords, we're going to start to slow down. And for the G chord in the last measure, we're going to play a traditional sort of a G chord, fretting the 3rd fret of the low E, the 2nd fret of the A, and the 3rd fret of the high E. And we're going to slowly pick the strings as follows. E, A, D, G, B, and then go back and play the D, G, and B strings again, and then strum the entire chord. That's going to give us a big dramatic finish, and the last 3 measures with the C, C minor, and G chords sounds like this. Let me play through the entire challenge for you. Have a listen. Okay, so that's Wake Me Up When September Ends. It's a great song with a touching meaning behind it and a guitar part that's really fun to play. I've provided tabs and chord diagrams. Get busy, I can't wait to see and hear your versions. I want to wish you all a wonderful holiday season, and I'll be seeing you in the community online. Take care and talk soon.